Helmut Hubener, who was a 16-year-old in Nazi Germany, was a member of the church. Lived in Hamburg and attended a branch there. His life, since he was 8 years old, all he had heard was propaganda. And then he turns on the BBC and starts hearing the truth and immediately recognizes it for what it was. Just really felt like this feels true. I do hope that some will leave asking themselves the question that I've been asking myself since I found this story, which is, what would I have done? And what will I do now? And I think if people can be asking themselves that question in this week's environment and our situations right now, then that's what I would love for this project.
I'm definitely going to take my kids to watch this film. It's something that I've been wanting my oldest girls, to understand what it means to be a Latter-day Saint, to be a follower of Christ. That's like the biggest thing, is I've been wanting them to build this relationship with Christ. And so it means drawing a line in the sand and stepping over.
Welcome in here on Zion Media, and I apologize for my voice. I have been practicing my lion roar. After I saw how well David Douglas did it, I went and practiced it, lost my voice in the process. I just want to give a huge shout out and thanks. They have asked me to remain anonymous, but as Zion Media continues to do many things, right now I'm doing a private trip with a small group of people. We're going out to Adam-on-Diamond in October, here in a couple weeks, and trying to fund all of these things becomes a challenge. When you're doing all this stuff, when you're flying around and you're going to do endowment sessions with people, all of this stuff costs money. And I had a couple people show up. I had one person show up today with two of these. I've never even seen these. This is a silver bar, 1,000 ounces of silver. Gave me two of them, and somebody else sent me a $10,000 Zelle today. So I'm feeling very humbled because I've never been in a position to receive like that. I know many of you don't know this, but in 2014, I gave away $1 million to random people in Natchez, Mississippi. And I've always been the giver. I've always been the one that's giving to people in need. And so to be the receiver is really humbling. And for me, what I'm learning in this process is I have to be willing to receive. I have to allow myself to receive it, because there's tremendous blessings that the Lord has in store for them based on what they have given. And so, you know who you are. Thank you. Thank you so much. It's going to help us finish the studio, do this impromptu visit to Adam-on-Diamond on the 9th through the 12th. And so I'm very humbled, very grateful. I'm joined by Drea, our business operations manager, and David the Lion Douglas. And we have Matt Whitaker. And I'm really excited to talk about his new project, his film, Truth and Treason, with Angel Studios, and really get into like the backstory of how it came to be, the process, and what it's about, when it's coming out, so you all will know when you can go and watch it. And I'm telling you right now, Angel Studios is doing some of the coolest projects on planet Earth. Not to mention The Chosen, His Only Son. I mean, there's so many good movies that get you thinking, that bring the spirit, but are also not cheesy. This is the first time in my life as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints where the members, the saints, are producing high quality, entertaining, wholesome content. Most of the other stuff in my past, it's like, oh gosh, I can't believe they made that film. Oh, here's another Book of Mormon train wreck coming. And so I'm grateful to see people like Matt making content that's amazing to watch, but also usually has some layer of depth to it. So with that, Matt, welcome to Zion Media, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
All right. Thanks, man. I live here in Utah, and I'm a filmmaker, a screenwriter, and director. Grew up in California, came out to BYU a long, long time ago, and actually majored in film production. I should say I came out when I was a freshman. I was a drama major. I wanted to be an actor, or at least maybe I just wanted to be a movie star. I'm not sure about the acting part of it, but that was the plan, man. I was did a year at BYU as a freshman in plays and studying drama. Went on my mission, served in Paris, France for a couple of years. The plan at that time was I was going to come back and I was going to go straight to New York and try and give this acting thing a shot. And the plan was like, okay, I'll give myself 5 years, and if I haven't made it by then, I'll change directions and sell shoes or something. But while I was a missionary, as tends to happen, I think I grew up quite a bit, became a little bit more self-aware, realized a couple of important things. One, I wasn't that great of an actor. The other thing is it would be really hard to make a living as a member of the church and an actor. It's hard anyway, but to limit the roles that I wanted to take and everything. So when I got back from my mission, I went to the other side of the camera. I knew that I wasn't a great actor, but I felt like I knew good acting when I saw it. I felt like I could bring it out of others. So jumped to the other side of the camera, graduated with a degree in film production from BYU in 92, and I've been working, ever since. Kept thinking at first that I'm married with 3 kids, and thinking that we would be moving down to Los Angeles for my line of work. Haven't had to yet. I work from time to time in LA, but built a home here in Utah, and have been grateful to be gainfully employed in this crazy business for all these years.
So what are some of the other projects that you've done? And we'll get into your current project, but you have a list of other projects you've done in your career?
Sure. Yeah. It's interesting because in this market, it's fun on these kinds of podcasts. I can talk about things from a little bit different perspective than I do than when I'm in a meeting or talking to somebody in LA, frankly. But when I got out of film school, a lot of my work, and I was very fortunate and very blessed, frankly, to be directing very, very quickly. And I cut my teeth on seminary films. You mentioned cheesy Mormon films. I've done some of those for seminary.
Some of them I love. There's some of the cheesy ones that I'm like, man, they're still a tearjerker to me even today.
Yeah. So my very first one was a little seminary film called Spiritual Crocodiles. I don't know if you guys ever saw that one, because it's kind of out of circulation now, but it was based on a Boyd K. Packer talk and about being aware of the crocodiles that are there in the smallest little puddles in our lives, and ended up being a little kind of a little hit in the seminary circles, and kind of spurred the rest of my career actually within the LDS cinema and LDS circles. Kind of cut my teeth there, but really knew that I really wanted to be writing scripts and wanted to be directing feature films. I wrote a script in the early 2000s called Saints and Soldiers. It's a little film.
Yes. You wrote that script?
Yeah. And that was...
Oh, you're kidding me. I love that.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Tell me the background. What inspired that?
So I had actually, I was also really into doing documentaries for PBS at that stage in my career. And I had actually done a documentary specifically for BYU television called Saints at War, which was interviewing. My dad was a World War II vet. I've been fascinated with all things World War II my whole life. But in this one, I was interviewing LDS veterans of World War II on both sides. So American veterans and German veterans who were fighting in Hitler's army. And it was just fascinated by that. And that for me kind of really opened a fascination for the German side of the war, and kind of understanding better what it was like to experience Hitler's regime, but from within the inside. You know, it's really easy for us to look back 80 or so years later and see it in black and white. You know, the heroic resistance fighters and the evil Nazis, the evil Gestapo, those things definitely existed, but most of Germans lived in this big gray area in the middle where it was not clear at all what was right and what was wrong. And I just became very fascinated with that.
When you wrote that script, did you take it around? Like, who picked it up? Did you direct it, or did you just sell the script?
So it was actually a friend of mine, a couple friends of mine that are also filmmakers, Utah filmmakers, Ryan Little and Adam Abel. And Ryan approached me. He had seen the documentary and was interested in some of those stories. And so he and I sat down, and actually one night, kind of all night down in my writing room, just kind of brainstorming and pulling, you know, true accounts that I'd found and interviewing people and ideas that he had, and kind of creating this idea of how we were going to approach this concept of a group of World War II soldiers, Americans, that are trapped behind enemy lines. One of them is a member of the church. And just kind of weaving in these true stories into this account of these soldiers that have to make a very, very important decision if they're going to risk their lives to get the truth across enemy lines. And so I wrote the script very, very quickly. Not something I love to do, but it was actually because of the timing of when they had to start shooting with snow availability. Believe it or not, this World War II story that supposedly takes place in where the Battle of the Bulge was in Belgium, was shot up in Sundance, and we had to hurry and get the script done before the snow was gone. And so I literally, I don't share this a lot, but I literally had 8 days to write that script, which is impossible. In fact, I told him there's no way. And Ryan said, dang, well, we're going to shoot anyway, so I'll have to call somebody else to write it. And I said, fine. And wrote straight for about 8 days and finished that script. And it ended up, becoming quite a nice little piece. To your point, a film that I felt like maybe transcended a little bit a lot of what they were referring to then as LDS cinema. Just something.
Yeah, I think that was one of the first ones where I'm like, hey, this one, it's got cool graphics, it's got cool marketing, it doesn't feel cheesy, it's got the right message. But that was before Angel Studios was doing everything that they're doing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, this was some look back at that Saints and Soldiers and see it as kind of a harbinger of where where I never felt like it was part of LDS cinema. It had a character, one character who was a member of the church, and that was an interesting part of the story. But it just for us, we were just telling a good story.
Yeah. So after you do that, then what do you go and do? What other projects have you done leading up to your current one?
Yeah, so I wrote the scripts for the second and the third Work in the Glory films. Being based in Utah, a lot of the work that I get approached with, tends to be, or at least at that period in my career, tended to have church connections or that sort of thing. So I was approached by the producers of the first Work in the Glory, and they asked if I would write the scripts for the second and the third one, which was an incredible experience. All 6 people that saw those films, I think, really liked it. But I was
one of the 6.
Okay, great. Great. And then after that, I wrote another World War II film called Instrument of War.
Wait, I gotta stop you just a second. I'm sorry. The scene where Joseph he heals that woman's arm right in the middle of something happening, and he's just like, this family comes up in a carriage and they're excited to meet the prophet. Her heart, she hasn't been able to raise her arm. It's just such a wonderful part of church history. And then but if you did you have part in writing that?
So I wrote the scene. Yeah. I frankly, I'm trying to remember exactly how it ended up being shot. But I remember writing it. Yeah.
I can remember it like shot by shot. It's like such a fast moment, and there's so much that's going on. But yes, Joseph, sees the family. She wants to receive a blessing from Joseph. He's about to bless her, but then I don't remember how he got distracted, or he wasn't really distracted. He just, someone said, Joseph, we need, or something like was really excitable. And then, and it was like something that would have maybe tripped up anybody else that was leading a church of a restoration. And instead of him, well, the way he was depicted, the fact that he was able to give this blessing, he just says a quick blessing, just by putting his hand on her, and then he goes, and she's able to lift her arm. I just thought that, I mean, if you wrote that, that was brilliant. So
Yeah,
thank you.
I haven't thought about that in a long time, but it was important to me to kind of see it when I did the research just on that, like that incident, which is historically based, and there are a lot of accounts of it. My recollection is that I was really intrigued that that's the way it seemed to have happened, that Joseph did it, but didn't stay around to like take accolades or see, really what happened. He healed her miraculously, instantly, and was pulled away. And she and her family were kind of left to marvel in what had just happened.
It's as if Joseph was going to greet this family the same way he greets everybody, or at least everybody's depicted in that film or that series of films. And then instead of him getting to actually engage with the people because of how serious the nature of what he was being pulled away for, he ended up just doing that blessing and then leaving.
So then you move on, you do another World War II film, and then what's next on your docket?
So, and this is really kind of this project. So Truth and Treason, and if I can just put it out there now, it's going to be in theaters October 17th across the nation, all across Utah, of course, but all across the nation, and then even opening in theaters around the world.
It drops October 17th. We will make sure that we get this one. This episode will drop before that, so we'll make sure get your tickets.
Thank you. I think people seem to understand a little bit better now that opening weekend for a film that's going into theaters is key. And if people go out in en masse and see it on that opening weekend, it really kind of becomes a harbinger for how that film will do theatrically. So
you did good. It's 2 hours and 3 minutes. That's the number 23. That's the GOAT's number. So you're hitting the numbers right with the 23 right there.
That's good.
Go up, David. Are you scrolling, or who's scrolling here? Let's tell me a little bit about what's the movie about? How long did it take to shoot it? How long did it take to write it? Give me the synopsis a little bit here, and tell us a little bit about the film and what inspired it.
Yeah, first what it's about. Yeah, and if you see our key art there, our movie poster, that's our lead actor, and he's playing the part of Helmut Hübener, who was a 16-year-old in Nazi Germany, was a member of the church. He lived in Hamburg and attended a branch there. And when he was 16 in 1941, a couple things happened at the same time. He was a really bright kid. He was actually on the Nazi fast track. He was working at the city hall, and just really kind of going places. They saw him as this really bright potential future leader in Nazi Germany. Two things happened right around the same time. One was his older brother, who was serving in Hitler's army in France, came home and smuggled home with him an illegal shortwave radio. Of course, in Nazi Germany, only the People's Radio, which could only broadcast the propaganda they wanted to hear. Those were the only legal. That was the only legal source for information, that and any newspapers that were printed by the Nazis and approved by them. His older brother, sneaks home this shortwave radio that can get broadcasts from different parts of the world, including the BBC. And what the BBC was doing at that time was broadcasting into Germany in German, because they knew there were a lot of Germans who had illegal shortwave radios, and they were broadcasting the truth. They were broadcasting, the truth of Nazi Germany, the truth of how the war was going by that point. And Helmut, who had been raised in Nazi Germany, really all his life since he was 8 years old, all he had heard was propaganda. And then he turns on the BBC and starts hearing the truth, and immediately recognizes it for what it was. Just really felt like, this feels true. And I get this, and I'll explain this in a moment, but from firsthand from his best friend. So Helmut, right around that same time, he had a good friend who was Jewish and who was actually part of their LDS branch. He had converted to the church, and he was taken and taken by the police, taken by the Nazis, and eventually sent to Auschwitz, where he died. And that was kind of a last straw for Helmut. He was receiving all this true information. Also, at his work at the at City Hall there in Hamburg, he had access. They had a room filled with banned books, like they had kept copies of banned books where they had them archived in a locked room. He had access to that, and he started reading this banned material, and again had this access to truth that other people didn't have. And he started typing little leaflets. He actually borrowed the typewriter from the branch. He was the branch clerk, and he borrowed the typewriter and started typing up anti-Hitler, anti-Nazi leaflets, and then at night going out and putting them all, on the streets of Hamburg, and eventually recruited his two best buddies from their branch, Karl-Heinz Schnibe and Rudi Voba. Two other. Rudi was 15, Karl was 17, Helmut was 16, and the three of them go out onto the streets of Hamburg, putting up the truth. And the Gestapo was finding these leaflets. They were being turned in, some of them, and they were just relentlessly trying to find out who is writing these things. They were convinced that it was like a university professor, a communist university professor or something, that was writing these, because they were so incredibly well written, so well sourced, and the Gestapo knew filled with the truth as well. And so Helmut and his resistance group operated for about a year, and until Helmut was eventually captured by the Gestapo, went to trial. All three of them went to trial in the highest court in Germany, in Berlin, against a Hitler-appointed judge. And this is where Helmut had what I refer to in these circles, had his Abinadi moment, and stood up and got in the face of that judge and exposed lies in front of everybody else and embarrassed him, and was, spoiler alert, was sentenced to death, and became the youngest resistance fighter in Nazi Germany to be sentenced to death for standing up for the truth, and just happened.
Wow.
Mormon kid from Hamburg.
Jesus was a revolutionary. We like to think of him as always being kind and loving and filled with grace. And he was. But the scriptures say he was full of grace and truth. He said what needed to be said. He stood up, but he did it peacefully. Where Barabbas fought with swords, he fought with words. He was rejected by the Romans and the rabbis, the Pharisees and Sadducees, even by most of those who knew him. But he did what was right, and let the consequence follow. May we be filled with grace and truth. When the moment comes for us to stand up, may we stand.
Okay, so talk me through kind of how long did it take you to write it? What are you, the writer and the director? Just the writer? Looks like you're the director here as well. Start to finish, when you started this project to completing it, how long does it take somebody to write it? And then did you shop around and you ended up, Angel Studios said, hey, we like this project, we want this project? And talk me through what that experience was like working with Angel Studios.
You bet. And if I can, it's, you don't know this, but it's kind of a loaded question, and I'll explain as quickly as I can why that is. So I met Karl-Heinz Schnibe, Helmut's good friend and co-conspirator, in 2001. He was the last surviving member of this resistance group. I'd heard about him. My partner and I looked him up in the phone book, found his name, called him up, asked if he would let us come over and talk to him. He said yes. We went over, and he just shared, again, his firsthand experience of being Helmut's best friend and being a part of this group. And the story just blew me away. And so I actually did a documentary, that phase in my life, I was doing that a lot, did a documentary for PBS called Truth and Conviction. Carl's story we shot on film, and that was kind of like the spine of the story. But then I did so much research and finding anybody who was still alive that knew Helmut, or that knew, there was a part of that little LDS branch, all kinds of research and did this documentary that came out in 2002. It's while I was working on that documentary, I had a very powerful experience in Germany with Carl, and I realized this is more than just a little PBS documentary. This is a story that can connect with a worldwide audience, but it needs to be a feature film. And so it was shortly after that I actually started writing early drafts of a script for to tell this story as a feature film. And then the journey started. I started co-writing it with my writing partner who lives in Austria. And over the years, we had a script, had cast attached. I can say this: at one point in 2007, we had. You remember Haley Joel Osment, the kid from The Sixth Sense? Remember him? He was attached to play the lead, to play Helmut Hubener. And then the world housing market collapsed, and we lost all of our financing and put us into what they call turnaround in the business, meaning it went on a shelf for a while. Had several other iterations over the years. And then it was actually during COVID when we had our first meeting with Angel Studios. And a couple of their, the Harmon brothers, a couple of them had seen the documentary, and so they knew the story. They were real excited about it. And so we partnered with them, and it, have been through this process with Angel Studios of eventually shooting it as a 4-part series. So an extended 4-part series. And then while we were shooting the 4-part series, Angel Studios saying, "Man, you guys, this is so good. This needs to be in theaters. Is there a 2-hour version of this?" And so we said, well, let's see. And so my editor, incredible editor, really dived in and found this version of what we had shot. That's 2 hours, to your point, 2 hours and 3 minutes, but is really powerful, standalone theatrical experience. But we also will be releasing, Angel will be releasing the 4-part series as well. So
yes,
people can go and see this 2-hour version of it. And it stands on its own. If that's all they were to see, it's really powerful.
Great.
If they go see then watch the extended 4-part series, it's just so much deeper. We get into so much more depth into the characters, the Helmut's branch president, who is in the film and that plays an important part. But in the extended series, we dive deeper into his family and his decision-making. The Gestapo agent who was relentlessly hunting down these boys until he found them, his family situation and what happened there. It's just, it's really, I feel like I can have my cake and eat it too, because we have the theatrical release and the series.
That's cool.
So I really feel like I just want to speak up. I had the opportunity, and I'm going to do a shout out to Carden Ellis, because he made this possible for me to come and see a pre-screening of the film. And like after the film was made, it was just, the energy in that room was just different. And I could see why this film got pushed back to the now, because in the news, obviously we're having a kind of a Mormon moment right now, with everything that's going on with Charlie Kirk and Utah, and you have, Michigan, the church, and just an attack on Latter-day Saints in a way. And so it's just a really powerful moment where Latter-day Saints, because I feel like after that film was done, the Latter-day Saints, or at least the content creators, because most of it was in the audience was like YouTubers and podcasters and people involved in some form of media, were able to see like, okay, the work that I'm doing on whatever podcast I'm doing is that much more important. And I felt like people were ready to take up arms like the armies of Helaman, for sure.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it was a cool experience. That was my first. That was just a week ago yesterday. That was my first time seeing a film in a huge theater with a packed audience, and it was, to your point, it was just electric. At the end, you could just, sitting at the back, hearing the weeping at the end, but also hearing people that are filled with hope, and the comments that they made afterwards. It was really a powerful experience.
Yeah, I had a YouTuber, Latter-day Saint YouTuber, right next to me. I think his is Unshaken or something, his YouTube channel,
Yeah.
and he was in tears. with his daughter, he was just like wiping them. And so it was just kind of amazing to see some of these salty, you're on mute, Shane, but the salty saints were there, obviously Ward Radio, and then you had just different people from all channels, like boy, just so many. I'm looking forward to hopefully having on Zion Media to talk more about it.
And at that point, he realizes Germany's on the wrong side of the war. My name's Ewan Horrocks, and I play Helmut Hubener in Truth and Treason. I've really connected with this story massively. Zellerman and Helmut, they're on the rooftop, and at that point he realizes Germany's on the wrong side of the war, which is a huge thing. I think it's a massive gut punch for him. And then to realize that's all a lie from a radio broadcast is incredibly conflicting. But he doesn't suppress that information, he uses it as fuel to write these infamous leaflets and stand up for what's right. I really admire his fearlessness. To do what he did at his age is just, you can't believe it. It's kind of unbelievable, but it really happened. He's kind of this introverted, quite awkward character, but towards the end he completely changes and kind of grows into himself. It's more than a story of boy to man. It becomes from follower to leader. His journey is really powerful and moving as well. This story is more relevant than people think, especially with what's going on right now. I think it's something that, it's really powerful to have an opinion, to stand up for the truth. I hope people come away feeling a sense of inspiration and empathy, I think, because these boys, what they did at their age in that time is so powerful and brave, but also incredibly stupidly dangerous. But they did it anyway because they believed in what they were doing and they stood up and did it, and it's so moving to see that and to experience that on a big screen.
Yeah, sounds like my kind of movie. So, Matt, what's that like as a director, writer, to finally see this project from start to big screen? What was that moment like for you to see that? And hey, let's support this project. Let's support Matt. Get out there, go to the theaters, go support him, get your tickets. We need to support good, wholesome content, and that's what this is. It's also entertaining, and it sounds like it's also moving. And so go support it, get your tickets. But Matt, what's it been like has this been the biggest project you've worked on?
Yeah, by far. This is as I was talking about what I've done, I've written quite a few scripts that, big films that have been made. This is the first one that I've both written and directed. And so I've done a ton of directing, doing shorter form things after my seminary films, doing a lot of commercials and other films throughout my career. But this is the first feature film and at the same time limited series. And we actually filmed last year, spring of 2024 in Lithuania, scouted locations all over Europe, looking for a place that could look as close as we could to 1941 Hamburg. Of course, we scouted Hamburg, but it doesn't look like it did anymore in 1941. But we found the capital city of Lithuania is just perfect. And so we filmed there for my wife and I and daughter and I were living in Lithuania for 5 months as we prepped and then shot for a 10-week shoot, 50 days, and wrapped in July of 2024, and then have been in the editing room for more than a year to get it to this point. And I'll tell you what, it's surreal, frankly, again, partly because the journey has been so long. And I do feel, I know that it was guided. I knew we were doing the right things, but sometimes that doesn't, it's hard to remember that, when all the funding falls apart or, when things aren't working out. And I remember when I told my wife back, I know exactly when it was. It was August 13th of 2005 when I told my wife, hey, I feel like we're supposed to make this movie and I feel like I'm supposed to direct it. And then I said, but it may take a couple of years, hon, and so 20 years later, it's finally coming out. And yeah, it is extremely rewarding, surreal, and I'm just filled with gratitude, not only that we finished it and it's coming out, but also because, that's even with this long journey and where we've tried to be faithful and follow what we felt like we were supposed to be doing, it's still a possibility that you could finish a film and then go, it's all right,
I don't think that's what this is going to be. You literally are about to pour the gasoline on a fire that's already been started.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels like we have a powerful, beautiful, well-crafted film. The cast is just all a British cast, cast out of London, just incredible cast from top to bottom. And the kid that you see in the image there, Ewan Horrocks, this is his first lead role, and he was a gift. He was the reason we had to. He was born the year that I did the documentary, and so we had to. He said that one day on set. It's like, you just had to wait for me to get old enough to play this part. I said, absolutely.
Helmut wouldn't want it any other way.
I mean, it's pretty unbelievable what they did. And Rudy was 15 when he started doing it. And I just feel like at my age now, I don't know if I would have had the courage to do that. So for these boys, these young boys, to actually do it and make a difference and try and make a difference and show the courage of going up against this kind of embodiment of fear, then I think they knew the consequences, yet they still went ahead with it.
Just having the courage to continue to do it even when you're being pursued. And I would love for all of us to feel empowered enough to have that kind of truth and conviction in what we do.
Helmut had decided before he even handed out his first leaflet that he was going through with this no matter the consequence, Helmut wanted this and needed this. That was his calling.
The moment we have where I look at Carl, it's just that thing in the back of his brain goes, can I actually do this? And then he looks at Carl, and Carl's, it's so amazing, it's okay. You can do it, you can do this. I'll take the rap. And some part of him was like, oh, I can't do that. I just can't. It was my idea. I'm the culprit of this. No, I'll take the stand now. I will take the rap, and he does it in style.
Wow. Okay. So now that this is done, I'm sure it's a huge relief. Is there anything on the docket for Matt Whitaker right now? What other future projects are you looking at doing? Do you already have things in the works? And can you share with us anything that you might have coming down the pike?
Yeah, I can share a little bit. I've been working on a couple other scripts that, and I love telling true stories. I love adapting true stories for film. And I'm working on a couple other scripts. One of them is actually the story of Karl-Heinz Schnibe. So his best friend, who both Rudy and Carl lived, but 2 weeks before the end of the war, Rudy and Carl were in prison camps the rest of until Nazi Germany fell in 1945. And about 2 weeks before the end of the war, when Nazi Germany fell, they pulled him out of prison and forced him into the German army and sent him to Czechoslovakia without a gun. He said they never gave him a gun, never gave him a uniform. And he woke up a couple weeks later, surrounded by Russian tanks, was captured, and then he was a prisoner of war in Russia for 4 more years after that. And his story of survival and miraculous forgiveness is incredible. And so if I have my dream would be able to tell Carl's story next. And if you look that image you've got there, so just on the right side, in the brown suit, that's a young actor, Ferdinand Mackay. He's actually Scottish, but he plays the part of Karl-Heinz Schnibe, and he's an incredible actor. And we'll see. It would be great if that were the next project. Depends on the success of this. So if you want to see that story, go by.
Yeah, come support him, Matt. This has been awesome to just hear your journey, learn a little bit about Truth and Treason. I know David went and he hit me up afterwards and he's like, dude, it is so good. So I know he had a great experience with it. David, as we kind of wrap up here, do you got any questions? Drea, any questions?
Yeah, Drea first, if you have any questions.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to second what Shane just said, because David and I talked as well when he got done with watching it. And I was just like, taken back. I was like, that sounds like it's so timely and so inspired and just going to be amazing. I can't wait to see it. Is there like something that you just want to say to people who are going to watch it in like any kind of combination of what's going on in the world right now and what they're about to experience watching it?
Yeah, there sure is. I'm gonna just, if I can, in two ways to respond to this. The first one is I would love for people, we talked about opening weekend. I would love for people just to go to angel.com/truth and pre-buy tickets. Again, I'm not really good at shilling. I'm not really good a sales guy, but the more people that pre-buy tickets, that's a signal to theaters that they're going to put it into more theaters and open it up into more theaters. And so I would just encourage everybody, if you think, man, this seems like a good movie, don't wait, even go opening weekend, but buy your tickets right now, because that helps to get it out even into more theaters. And my second part to your really good question is, for me, it's always been important that this isn't a message piece, that this is just a really good, powerful story, true story that hopefully people will leave feeling inspired and moved. But I do hope that some will leave asking themselves the question that I've been asking myself since I found this story, which is, what would I have done? And what will I do now? And I think if people can be asking themselves that question in this week's environment and our situations right now, then that's what I would love for this project.
Awesome.
Amazing.
Awesome.
I'll go ahead and just piggyback off that, what you just said, because in the climate that we're in right now, you have people who, and this is why it's so timely, you have people who are taking sides both in and out of the church.
Yeah.
And you've got so many wild experiences. And what's beautiful about the story, which is, it's like a God thing, absolutely, seeing what's depicted in this film is as if this was like really meant for our time, this very moment, because you really do show how Nazi Germany had people that had to pick a side, and they were even in the church and even neighbors, of course. And then man, I don't know if we talked enough about, I'm curious about like your experience as a member of the church. Did you serve a mission? Did you?
He did. He went to Paris.
Yeah. Okay. I missed that part. And so as you're writing this, like you talked about your wife, did your kids get to have a new look at this as members of the church through the eyes of you and who you're interviewing for this film?
Yeah. Thank you, David. That's a really meaningful question. I am born and raised in the church. But I think like all of us had to have my own conversion experience, and have tried throughout my life to be all in, even if I have questions, which I do, but I'm all in.
Amen.
And I'm gonna keep.
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm all in too. My chips, I'm all in. And I tell people this, like, I guarantee you, we had a choice before we came here, and we said, yep, that's where I'm going right there. And so I tell people all the time that have made a different choice, maybe a different choice to leave or do something else. I'm like, you made the choice to be in, and now you came down here, you forgot everything, and now you're choosing to be out. I think that's a mistake. We need to be all in, and the Lord is hastening his work. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
Thank you. Yeah. And I would be remiss if I didn't give credit where credit is due, in two ways. First, to my wife. That day, August 13th, 2005, when I said, I think God's telling me to direct this film. She just completely came in. Has been completely supportive through all of my ups and downs. She has been this steady force of helping me to keep going. Not because, well, she loves the story. Of course, she's seen the impact the story has had on our kids as we have raised them in the church, but also they've grown up knowing about Helmut Hubener and his example, and they met Carl many times, and so children have grown up with that as well. But my wife, I'll share one experience here. Somewhere in the middle of this 20+ year journey, I had taken some work at working. I was creative producer at an advertising agency, frankly getting paid really well, loved what I was doing, but this project, which we had been pushing up this boulder up the hill for so many years, was just kind of languishing because I was so busy on this other thing. And one night she just asked me the question. She said, "Are we still making your movie?" And I said, "Well, of course, and she said, "Well, when?" And I said, "Well, hon, to be honest, if we really want to dive back in and move it forward, I'm going to have to quit this great job and leave behind all the great, the paychecks and the experience and frankly
the high moment,
the benefits."
high moment.
And so she said to me, "Well, do you still feel like you're supposed to make this movie?" And I said, "Yes, I do." And she said, "Then what are we doing?" So that is why I'm sitting here right now, having shot a film, having made this movie and having it released as it is, because of a companion like that who is also all in and helps me to be all in, even when I may be questioning things.
Wow. Yeah. That's could you be the latter-day Lehi? I'm just saying that because it's just like it's amazing to hear your wife be the fire that drove you to take that big step. I'm definitely going to take my kids to watch this film. It's something that I've been wanting my oldest girls, to understand what it means to be a Latter-day Saint, to be a follower of Christ. That's like the biggest thing, is I've been wanting them to build this relationship with Christ. And so it means, drawing a line in the sand and stepping over. So just the last question is, what about your kids? How have they changed? How are they impacted as they witness you going through this experience since 2005?
That's a great question. And like I said, they had this incredible privilege of knowing a resistance fighter from Nazi Germany, of knowing personally Karl-Heinz Schnibe and having him over for dinner, and going to his home and talking directly with him. They've all done it in junior highs. They do these little history projects and history fair and stuff. They've all done little videos and stuff and interviewed Karl-Heinz Schnibe, or at least two of them did, and they've all been very exposed to this. I absolutely believe that this example, Helmut's example, has sunk deep into their souls, and has an impact as I've watched them grow and become such good people, good, honest, kind, filled with grace and truth. And when you've seen the film, you know what an important part of the story that is, but filled with the kindness of Christ, but also brave enough and courageous enough to stand up and speak the truth when it needs to be said.
Amen. That's awesome. Well, Matt, I don't know why I called you Matthew. Maybe it is Matthew.
I go by
Matt.
Matthew's cool. My mom.
Latter-day Matt, where are you at? Maybe he's right here. But thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for chasing your passion. And it's cool to me to hear about a guy who's got a wife that's like, "I got your back. We're going to do this together." Totally supportive, a real helpmeet to help you see this vision that you had become a reality. And as David said, can you imagine if Lehi's wife would have said, "Nope, I'm staying here"? What a different story we may have today in the Book of Mormon, and what a different story Matt, you may have had if your wife would have said, "No, don't leave that job. We need that money," or whatever it is, right? We wouldn't be sitting here having this discussion today, and you certainly wouldn't have made this piece that is going to move many people to come closer to Christ, closer to our Heavenly Father. So thank you so much for coming on. Hey, get your tickets. Go and get your tickets. Let's support, especially our fellow Ephraimites here. Let's support the House of Joseph. Let's support this project. Go and get your tickets. I'm going to be there opening night. I'm excited to go check it out. Matt, where are you going to go watch it opening night? Where are you going to be?
So the short answer is that we haven't decided yet, but our actors, the three boys, the actors playing Helmut, Carl, and Rudy, are going to be here in Utah for the premiere, which is this next Monday, and then they're going to stay, and we're all going to go sneak in, sit in the back incognito somewhere, either in here in Utah or down in LA, and watch it together and on opening night.
That'll be cool to see how people respond, not knowing that the writer and director is literally amongst the people. I know, I don't know if you know a guy named Casey Elliott. He's pretty popular in the acting community. He's a good friend of mine. And he pulled me aside and he said, "Hey, Shane, I'm playing this part for the church." And I'm like, "Oh, really? This is like 2014. He said, "Yeah, I'm not supposed to say anything, but do you want to go to the premiere with me?" I'm like, "Sure, man. Like, what is it?" And he said, "Well, it's at Bountiful Temple." I'm like, "No way." And he tells this really cool story where he got interviewed to come in. Him and his wife got interviewed for Adam and Eve. And then he got a phone call and said, "Congratulations, we'd like you to play Satan." And so he says, "Well, it sounds like that the Adam didn't fit, but certainly me being Satan did fit." So I went with him on opening night in the temple, and I'm sitting there with Satan, and I joke all around and I say, "Yeah, I'm friends with Satan." But people were looking over at him and looking at the movie, and that was a fun experience. So you'll get to have this fun experience without people actually knowing that you had written it, and you'll be able to get a genuine reaction from people, which will be really cool. So
I'm looking forward to that.
Thank you, Matt, for coming on. Hey, if you haven't got your tickets to Mexico, we are going to see Nephi's Temple. We're going to go see the Waters of Mormon. It's filling up fast, but there's still room. And if you get it now, you can get in at the price $2,000. It's going to go up though. It's going up. I don't know. You'll have to ask Dre. I think it's going up about $1,000. It's going to go from 2,000 to 3,000 here in the next week or so. So make sure you sign up, get on board with us. It's going to be awesome. You want to go see Noah's Court where Abinadi was preaching to Noah? Well, Lance Weaver thinks he has that spot down in Oaxaca, Mexico. So come with us. It's going to be an amazing time. You can visit zionstreaming.com to sign up, to register an RSVP. And hey, check out our shorts. I've been traveling all around this place. I was in Andayaman last week, Liberty Jail, Independence. I'm going back again this next week. So follow our shorts. We're trying to produce good short content that teaches powerful lessons while we're in our daily walk. And I tell you what, God is in the details, and he is teaching us every step along the way for sure. So Matt, thanks again for coming on. For myself, I'm Shane Baldwin. For David the Lion Douglas, Andrea the Bomb, thanks for tuning in to Zion Media, and we'll see you guys all next time.